about Robert Saleh as well and the NFL coaching deal because Pete Carroll at one point, who went from the Jets, went to USC, then he went to Seattle before he got out of it. You've gone through the gauntlet here, though, since I'll just give you my own working in this market for the past 10 years since May of 2014. That goes back to Rex Ryan, who coached 96 games for the Jets, 46-50 record, went to 6 playoff games, won 4 of them. That's the last time the Jets have won a playoff game, 2014. So when I started here in 2014 was the last time the Jets went to the postseason, and it's been 10 years of then Todd Bowles, Adam Gase, Robert Saleh, and now we're on to Ulrich. And, Jeff Ulbrich, he is going to take over a team that, a lot of people thought had aspirations of going to the postseason, but they're 2-3. You're 5 games in. You just played a game in England, which is never easy. And, Woody Johnson left to be the ambassador of England for the United States for a few years. Then he comes back. His brother was running the operation. They have run in and out of general managers in that time, and it's been just nothing short of a catastrophe, one after another, because of the fact you have no structure. There's no stability. You can't every 2-3 years, when you think it's going wrong, dump out of your plan. Most of these guys need between 3 and 5 years to get their own players in there. I'll give you an example because I was working on the West Coast when this happened. Pete Carroll goes from USC, all of the different scandal stuff they were going through. He goes to Seattle. Within the first year, he went from the current roster he had, changed out in 2 years, 46 players on the roster. 46 players. And he brought in guys that were Pete Carroll guys. So those guys are going to take a couple years to gel and, get to where they want. And they did. They're winning the Super Bowl. Should have won 2, really. If they just handed the damn ball off, they would have won 2 Super Bowls. But that being said, that's when you allow coaches and football people to make football decisions. Now, as a Cowboys fan, I know Jerry Jones, once he took over operations, he has meddled in every facet from marketing to who they draft for the entire time he's been the owner. That's what owners do. And Kurt Kaplan and I were discussing this when I came in today. And imagine, Sam Darnold was a guy that was bashed and browbeat and basically pushed out of town. And you go over to England, you've got your brand new shiny toy, fresh off his Achilles heel. Everybody's all fired up with your 2-2 record, which you should have been 3-1, but you kind of choked in one game. But you're still really fascinated by this Aaron Rodgers guy, and you lay a huge egg over there. Aaron Rodgers looks like he's disinterested, throwing balls all over the place, not even close to targets. Guys were dropping balls that he would just, should have been caught. It was they were not prepared. Is basically what it looked like. The Jets were not prepared. And so now you blame the head coach because you can't fire Aaron Rodgers.
Well, Woody probably went to Joe Douglas, right? And Joe Douglas said, well, it's not me. It's got to be him.
Yeah, but I don't even think it's that anymore. I think that these owners now, they are – I'll give you let's go to the Yankees for a second for years when they forced out Gene Michael as the president and general manager before they brought in Brian Cashman and even Bob Watson back in the mid-'90s. He's listening to all his cronies and his buddies down in Tampa. So he's not even in New York. So George Steinbrenner is wherever he is. I don't know where Woody Johnson lives or where he hangs out. Let's just say, for instance, he's in the Hamptons. And any given Wednesday through Sunday when you're hanging out with all your buddies and stuff like that, they're nitpicking your product. They're nitpicking your company. And so this guy goes over to England where he was an ambassador.
Right.
With a guy that comes in is supposed to be not qualified to beat you, and Sam Darnold beats up on you. And basically, it's like, how did that even happen? I'm embarrassed. And so you're reeling. So the whole flight back, and it's 5 hours from England to New York, you're venting, and maybe he was on a private jet himself. So maybe it's 2 or 3 hours, and whoever's in his little inner circle is nitpicking again. And now they're blaming Saleh instead of Rodgers. This is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers goes to Egypt for 2 weeks and leaves his teammates hanging. You can't get any work done. You don't have the main character. This would be like filming a movie and Tom Cruise takes 2 weeks off to go look at mummies. You can't finish all of these days of filming until he comes back. He's the star. So Aaron Rodgers knows he's the star. His ego is such that it's all about me. And basically, probably got all the way back to Aaron Rodgers, his people, and they're like, yeah, we want a different head coach. How is this guy that's going to come in, the defensive coordinator? Now, you brought in your other buddy to call Hackett to right. Call your plays. You brought in Lazard. You brought in everything you really want other than a running back, and it's not working. So you're going to point fingers. That's the worst kind of job you can have. When I played in locker rooms where guys started pointing at each other, it's over. It's over. So this is just the writing's on the wall right here. You're either going in a different direction or you're all in on Aaron Rodgers. Well, either way, if you're a Jets fan, you're screwed.
With the media being what it is in New York, and you get the questions at a volume that probably not another organization really gets, but all those questions during those 2 weeks while he's in Egypt are about a guy that's not there.
Right.
And that's got to be infuriating to a player, to any man.
Well, to the ownership, because remember, these guys are soft. These owners, God, there's just so many different ways I could go with this. I'll just go to the Nationals. When I was hired by the Nationals to do color on their broadcast, I go to this big party at George Will's house. We all know who George Will is. He's a big political guy, but he's also a huge baseball guy, right? So he's got all these people over there. I show up, and I meet the Lerner family. Ted Lerner. He's a billionaire. And right away, they're like, oh, you're the new guy, and blah, blah, all this stuff. I was kind of like the shiny toy, and everybody's like, let me see your tattoos and all this other stuff. And the team was horrible. They were losing 100 games a year. And so I was like, well, what are the plans? What are your plans going forward? We're like, we're not really in charge. We bought this team so that our son Mark would have something to do. That's exactly what these billionaires were telling me.
It's a hell of a toy.
That's right. This is a toy for Mark Lerner, who is now in charge of the Nationals. So, whether or not it's Woody Johnson or the Colts owner or Jerry Jones, these people, they're not our people. They don't see the things we see. We're like, hey, you got to put a football team out there. So you need football people to run it. But they surround themselves. I could go to the Lakers when I lived in L.A., Dr. Buss dies. Jerry Buss dies. They leave the team to the two kids. Jim takes it because he's older. And Jeannie Buss is forced out. This guy fires scouts that had 45, 50 years in the business of the NBA. And he brings in his bartender and his friends to run everything.
Right.
So this is where I come from.
The coach of the year,
yes,
Scott.
You fired Phil Jackson. You did all this stuff. And you think, you know what? I'm a big shot. I'm a big time guy. I've got this huge toy, and these are my little play toy guys. It's kind of like Toy Story, or even what was the other one where the military things go crazy. But it's more about control. And Woody Johnson wants to let these guys know he's still in control, even though after a couple of years, the players are listening to Robert Saleh. Robert has very little control, and Joe Douglas, over the finished product. The finished product needs money. You need money to throw at some of these free agents. They didn't get the right guy, just like the Cowboys. Should have got Derrick Henry. They brought him in. They didn't like him. They were like, listen, we don't think we can use him in a Dallas uniform. And look at how good this guy's playing for the Ravens. So to me, it's more about, listen, these guys, at the end of the day, look at your Red Sox and Terry Francona. He wins 2 world championships. What do? They ship him out. Yeah. Why? Our ratings on Nesson are low because the product on the field is not good. You're at fault. Basically, in the boardroom meeting, point at Terry Francona, who goes, what the hell are you talking about? Ratings. I'm running a baseball team.
Yeah, that wasn't even year-to-year ratings, by the way. That was like from the fall to the spring, and it's like, whoa.
When there's no baseball. There's no baseball. So,
and then we're
So I'm trying to let our
competing.
listeners understand, Kurt, this is the mentality of these owners that they, on the day-to-day football stuff, they don't care. They're worried about how they look at the end of the day. Are we making money?
Right.
You know, how's our TV station doing? How is, if you look at James Dolan, who owns Rangers and Knicks, he also owns Madison Square Garden. He's worried about Billy Joel's 3 nights as much as he's worried about are the Knicks winning. These people have so many hands in different pies that at the end of the day, Woody Johnson, who owns other stuff, other teams and things like that, Woody Johnson's like, this is where I'm getting the most, stress. This is the most stress right now, and you're to blame. And the only guy that's sitting at this table that I can fire is Saleh. And I feel bad for the guy because there's, last year, 75 seconds into Aaron Rodgers' tenure, he blows out, right? And whose fault? You can't control injuries.
Right.
You cannot control injuries. So last year was a wasted year for Saleh. So even though I'm looking at his overall record of 18-33, I can't look at last year and blame this guy. And right now, looking at Aaron Rodgers, he looks old. He looks slow. In England, he looked disinterested. How do we turn this around? God, listen, I hope Jeff Ulbrich can come in and turn this around. But after 5 games, Jets are still in this. Nobody's running away with that division. Here's the one thing I do know this season. It's not about just Saleh. It's about the offensive coordinator and Rodgers in this offense. Least scoring team or yardage per game. It's under 300 yards per game. I think it's 296. The worst offense in the AFC.
And the same amount of points that they scored 4 games in as last year with Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's, again, when you're looking at star power and Aaron Rodgers is on Pat McAfee every week, and he's talking about whatever he's talking about and stuff like that, trust me, those people listen to that stuff. And Aaron Rodgers is the type of guy where he's not taking accountability. This isn't my fault. This is that guy's fault. That's that guy's fault. It's that guy's fault.
He's good at that.
Oh, yeah, he's great at pointing fingers. I would hate to play with a guy like Aaron Rodgers. That's the last guy I'd want to be. It's funny because when I look back at my team, every guy I could look around the locker room would hold themselves accountable, like to a problem. Like guys like, Paul O'Neill or Eric Davis or Barry Larkin or any of these guys, Chris Sabo, where it would eat away at them. Any kind of failure would eat away at these guys. We don't have the same kind of players that we had 30, 40 years ago.
Do you feel like it's more generational than it is just personality traits with these people, the different ones that'll say, no, I've got to be better?
I mean, listen.
I've heard Joe Burrow do it, but he's not getting any better by saying that I've got to be better.
But at least his team wants to be led by him. Do you see what I'm saying?
I get you there.
So, when Tom Brady would take pay, he'd alter his contract and stuff to bring in talent and try to win. That went a long way to build relationships and respect for what that guy's doing. That guy could be a total jerk and say, hey, I'm getting paid. I don't care what you get. Well,
that's kind of what Aaron did with that contract in Green Bay and said, I want the money.
Well, and if you remember back, he was blaming the general manager for drafting Jordan Love, who, by the way, has turned out to be a pretty decent NFL quarterback. Because, listen, their job description is different than Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is trying to run a football team and win championships. We're trying to give you the players to do that, but also we got to look towards the future. We got to have a contingency plan. We got to have a good backup. Things like that. So it's football is a very difficult sport because the one thing that you can't control, and listen, you get a lot of injuries in baseball, basketball, but you need guys that want to show up to work. When that dude went to Egypt, that's when Robert Saleh lost his job.
Wow.
When Robert Saleh backed Aaron Rodgers and not the other 52 dudes in that locker room, and there's 100 guys, there's a practice squad and all the other stuff, but I'm just talking about the active roster guys. He lost the locker room. Those guys were like, I can't believe you backed Aaron Rodgers. But again, he's he's behind the 8 ball. If I don't back Aaron Rodgers, I lose Aaron Rodgers. If I do back Aaron Rodgers and he doesn't do well, like, listen, if they're 4-1, we're not having this conversation.
Oh, well, winning fixes everything.
That's right. And so, listen, this is what Woody said. What did he say? This one, it wasn't an easy decision. Of course, it's not an easy decision.
I want somebody to say that it was an easy decision. We're not doing well. He got canned.
Well,
Just
that
one time.
that would be the honest answer.
One owner ever in the history of any sport.
No, because once again, you can't fire the players, and that's what I would say if I'm Woody Johnson. We're disappointed so far with the execution of the team we've put on the field. We thought we gave Robert Saleh an opportunity to have better players, and did that. They went on and got Aaron Rodgers. Listen, there's no question in my mind. They lost a lot of leeway and wiggle room when you pay one guy $50 million a year. It's like the Cowboys. You're paying CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott so much money. Now Micah Parsons is the next guy in line. But you still got 50 more guys you got to pay.
Right.
And that's not easy. It's a system it's built to fail. It really is. And the more people are like, well, he's making so much. Because, listen, the quarterbacks make the most. The wide receivers, the defensive ends, the left tackles, those are your money guys.
And the more top-heavy you are, the more of a problem it is trying to get talent to the other positions.
Which lets, and while we have 3 minutes, Tim Brando is coming up. We'll talk a little college football and kind of change gears here. Look at the New York Yankees last night. Carlos Rodon looks great for 1 inning. But then after that, he starts going south by the 3rd or 4th inning. You're paying that guy, and I've been saying this since they got him, or Garrett Cole, you are paying them to win postseason games. Not 1 inning, at least 6 innings out of that guy.
No, it was the other way around. He was supposed to come in and not be good in the first inning and then put it together for a 4.
But I think, listen, he was amped up. It's a playoff game. He feels great. He's throwing great. He does great in that first inning. But, dude, it's a long game. And these Royals are fighters. They're going to keep coming back. That Salvador Perez had 4 home runs off of him. Now he's got 5 home runs off of Rodon. So when you're looking at, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Cole, Aaron Judge, guys that are getting the most money, it's not for the regular season. It's for the postseason. And as we go back here with the Jets, you haven't been to a postseason game in 10 years, going on 11 years. And so now, I don't care how much you're paying Aaron Rodgers or anybody else on that roster. If they don't get there, heads will roll because Woody Johnson, at the end of the day, is going to sit down with all the bean counters, the accountants, and they're going to go, we paid how much for this season? How much for this disaster? So it's the same thing with the Yankees. It's the same thing with all of these other teams that spend a lot of money.
And it's another reminder that the firings will continue until morale improves around here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the morale's not going to improve until Aaron Rodgers wants it to. Until Aaron Rodgers walks through that door and acts like a leader, it's not going to improve because everybody goes off of his lead. It wasn't Robert Saleh that was setting the tone. It was Aaron Rodgers. And when Aaron Rodgers left for 2 weeks to go on a vacation in the most important part of the camp, it was over. It was over. And so that's I feel like Robert Blake. That's the name of that tune. Really, because when you see garbage like that, you're thinking, why are you acting like this? You talk about, I want to be a football player, I want to be the best of all time and known as the best of all, but it's also, you know what? I already booked this trip on whatever.com, and I'm going to take it. I'm going to go see these dead mummies. Those mummies aren't going anywhere. They've been there for 5,000 years, 3,000 years. They ain't going anywhere. But this season, at his age, right now at 2-3, doesn't look good moving forward. And so Robert Saleh, blindsided. No way you can say that with a straight face.
The only thing Aaron has accomplished is really trying to help out Pat McAfee, I think.
Yeah, but listen, Pat McAfee got paid. I mean, again,
so doesn't Aaron. He gets paid for his appearances.
But I'm not a big money guy. It's about perception. The perception in that locker room is if that guy can get away with it, what about a guy like me? I'm not the star. I'm the backup QB. I'm the third string running back. I'm the backup guard. Those guys.
Right, the press corps is not going to notice whether or not I show up.
That's right. And so for you And showing up, I don't mean physically. I mean every day working, practice you're working. You're going to all your film sessions. You're being on time to your training sessions, things like that. So these are all little things that we would get fined for if we were late. But it also showed a lot about the man. You're a professional. Show professionalism. Be there, show up. When Rodgers, who's supposed to be the consummate professional and one of the greatest quarterbacks of all, I hear that by all of these people, the McAfees and all these other people that are supposed to be the in-the-know people. That's BS to me. If the star doesn't show up when he's supposed to show up, you're going to screw the rest of us over. All right, Tim Brando's going to join us. His thoughts, though, I can't wait to talk about Vanderbilt and Alabama and some of the college football stuff that went on this week. Tim Brando from Fox Sports, one of the best play-by-play voices for over the past 4 decades, will join us next on the Bobby V's Hotline.